You've had Wendy's Nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Saucy Nugs take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic, parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. And of course, the spicy versions of all those flavors I listed above. Only at Wendy's. Only on Wendy's signature spicy nugs. And by the way, if you buy your teenage son 20 and say, save me some, he won't. So get some of your own. 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick a flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you have never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's got to be Wendy's at participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome to Andy and Ari on 3. And yes, I am a little bitter about my son ganking all of my Wendy's saucy nugs and not leaving me any. He was supposed to leave me like 5. That's all I asked. I should have just ordered my own. But Ari, everybody,
that's on you.
I
got news for you, pal. It's not his fault. It's your fault.
I know. He's like he's a miniature version of me who's going to be a larger version of me pretty soon. And I should know these things. I know what I would have done as a 15-year-old, and that's eating all the nugs. So should have known. I'm saucy about that. Everybody else is saucy about Cam Ward. We got to talk about this, Ari. Like, the best bowl game of the year is the Pop-Tarts Bowl so far. Like, it was the best game. It was the most intriguing, the most post-game intrigue. The ghost of strawberry Pop-Tart showed up. And then, of course, no defense was played in the first half. Much defense was played in the second half because Cam Ward wasn't playing. And then it was all about why Cam Ward didn't play. Palm Beach Kane is in our chat already. He was in the chat before the show even started saying, before you even start, Cam Ward was supposed to play the first quarter only, got to play the first half. Cam didn't quit. Mario wanted to see next year's starting quarterback. Palm Beach Kane, do you think we're one of those basic shows that was going to sit here and blast away at Cam Ward? Do you think we're stupid enough to think Cam Ward showed up at halftime and was like, I'm out? Do you think we're that stupid? I realize a lot of the discourse has been about that, but we are not stupid. So we know that Cam Ward didn't walk into the locker room and be like, I'm out, I'm done.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. First, I want to tell you, and I don't know if you still try to explain college football to your wife, because my wife
all the time when she asks.
Yeah, my wife does ask like once a month, and every time she asks and I go into the explanation, she goes, this makes no sense. I don't care anymore. But part of it, too, is the explanation that college football is a culture and not necessarily just a game. Like, I think when people think you cover college football, they look at it from the perspective of like, well, who's playing? What time? When are you going to the games? Who's making the playoff? Who's the national champion? It's like, it's so much as I think it's as much about this function in pop culture as it is about the actual games. And one of those things every year, and this is a credit to the Pop-Tart situation, is that the Pop-Tart thing has become a thing, right? Yes. And I think you can make a case that no bowl game or no bowl game sponsorship has gotten more out of their sponsorship than Pop-Tarts, and kudos to them for like making it that way. Because if it was just the Pop-Tarts bowl and they didn't do all this other extra grab ass, then it wouldn't have been that way. But anyway,
congratulations to Cinnamon Roll on your ritual sacrifice. Exactly. Excellent choice, Rocco Becht.
But like I made this is a ritual sacrifice joke to my wife during nap time because we were watching this game together. And she goes, this is the weirdest, most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I do not understand anything that you do. And it's hilarious because if you try to explain the charm of the Pop-Tarts Bowl to somebody who's not in the college football realm, they think it's the craziest, most insane thing they've ever seen. And I even called it a ritual sacrifice. And I said, we know Cole Kubelik, who was eating it. And she goes, I can't do this anymore. And I got up and left. So anyway, we were watching this game during nap time. And as we were watching it, it was on mute. So when Cam Ward wasn't playing, I just thought in my head, well, good for him for coming out, breaking the record and playing in this game that he probably shouldn't have even played in to begin with.
So he also played beyond the breaking of the record. The breaking of the record happened in the first quarter.
Exactly. Yeah. He kept playing.
Yeah.
Andy, he played a half too much, right? Like everybody who's upset about him not playing in the second half. you mad about? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's been 2.5 days and I do not get it.
I'm convinced that there's a significant portion of the college football fan base that just wants to be mad. Like, they want to be mad about something, and this gives them a thing to be mad about. And it's a convenient avatar because it's like, oh, you know, this didn't happen in my Pappy's day. Well, in your Pappy's day, the players were stupid and did not fight for their rights. So this is them actually taking part in this multi-billion-dollar operation that is college football. And yeah, Cam Ward didn't have to play a single down in this game. I see the people saying, oh, Cam Ward hurt his draft stock. If I'm an NFL team, no. He didn't hurt his draft stock at all. In fact, he helped it because he showed how much he was propping up Miami. It's like my main interest in this whole thing is not in Cam Ward at all. It has nothing, very little Cam Ward. It has more to do with Miami in general and what happens next. And so here's the thing. The reason this has gotten so much chatter, the reason this has become such a major part of the discourse is the way Mario Cristobal answered the question after the game. Because he said, we're going to keep those conversations private. Those decisions are made in private. And so I wrote a column at On3, and there's 3 plausible explanations for what happened here. Explanation number 1 is Cam Ward acted alone, walked in at halftime, said, I'm out. That doesn't make any sense. Explanation number 2 is it was mutually agreed upon that he was going to play a half, and then they were going to put Emory Williams in to see how he could do. That makes a lot of sense. It also makes a lot of sense that after losing 42-41 in a game where you were shredding Iowa State's defense and suddenly you couldn't do anything when you put the backup quarterback in, if you're Mario Cristobal, you don't want to admit to that. And I think that's probably what happened. He didn't want to admit to being part of that decision.
I think that's the plausible scenario. And I will say 2 things. One's kind of a joke, which is Miami kicked like a cowardly, awful field goal up 3, like inside the 5-yard line on 4th down. And
I knew you were going to say this.
Well, I was like watching this and I was like thinking, okay, your defense hasn't stopped shit, not just today, but since the calendar flipped this time a year ago. And like, this is the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Just go for it. Like, what? I mean, you wanted to put your quarterback in and let him play, like give him an opportunity to convert a 4th down. And like, I don't know. That's how I'm thinking. Maybe there's a secondary discussion to be had about whether or not the Pop-Tart Bowl is prestigious given the sponsorship now, and wanting to win it is like akin to wanting to win a BCS game back in the day.
Can we be real here, Art? This has been the best game of the postseason so far. There's a chance it could wind up being the best game of the postseason when postseason's over. This was a great game. Is there now a prestige in capturing the trophy? Like that, as a result. And then second part too is just like you had to at least put him out there, right? Yeah. Emory Williams?
Yeah. Like, I mean, like if you are going into because I wrote a column and you wrote a column, but we want to talk about yours first. But doesn't Miami have to know, like, if there's a shot here with this kid? Like, well, I mean,
so I mentioned that there were 3 plausible explanations already. Okay, my third plausible explanation is the galaxy brain version of explanation number 2. So explanation number 2 is it was a mutually agreed upon. It was planned to put Emory Williams in the game. The third, like the galaxy brain version of this, is the coaches knew Emory Williams was going to do this and it was going to look like this. And it was a cry for help. It's the bat signal to any quarterback who may think about entering the transfer portal, either because they're still playing on a team that's in a bowl game, so they're going to have a few more days because the portal's closed otherwise, or who might enter in the spring window. That's them. That's them crying for help. Like, hey, we got nothing for next year. Please come save us.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm happy that we're on the same page, that neither of us are like Cam Ward. Like there's nothing.
I put very little thought into the Cam Ward part of it. When I realized I'll tell you exactly where I was. I was picking up takeout from our favorite local Italian place. So I got spaghetti and meatballs, and my son got lasagna. My daughter went with minestrone. It was outstanding. but I'm watching it on my phone as I'm waiting for the order. And I have the sound turned down, but I see I see a shot of Cam Ward on the sideline. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, they're going with Emory. They're going to Emory. And like, I remember Emory starting against Clemson in 2023. He actually played like 23? Beat Clemson, did not play well in that game. He averaged like 4.5 yards per attempt, but was actually playing fairly well against then undefeated Florida State in the fourth quarter when he broke his arm. And so I was kind of interested to see him because I was like, well, this guy showed a little promise as a true freshman. So let's see what the kid can do. Interestingly enough, they roll for a touchdown on that first drive, but it was 10 handoffs. They went 71 yards with 10 handoffs. And his passing numbers were awful. They were terrible.
Yeah. So I remember watching the game on mute, and after Iowa State punched it in to go up by 1 with less than a minute left, the cameraman panned to Cam Ward on the sideline, who looked like he had that Cam Newton shaking his head ready to go look. And he was tossing the ball on the sideline. So I thought
he saw his shoulder pads on. He was still in uniform, right?
Yeah. So as far as I remember, that definitely seemed like, okay, this could be a cool story of like Cam Ward gave the kid a chance to play and then he comes in to the end. Cause I do think they would have scored or at least kicked the field goal if he would have come in on that last drive based on what we saw in the first half and based on what we saw in the second half. But that would have been a cool moment. And nobody would be talking about this, I think, even if Emory would have gone down the field. Because I think that the Cam Ward discourse is in 2 buckets here, Andy. One is non-Miami fans who don't care about the state of Miami football going into next year, who just want to scream about a player not playing. And then the other half is Miami fans who are probably terrified about what's around.
Which is the way more interesting one. Like, I went on the Kane Sport message board after the game, and it was really interesting because like there was a post from before Christmas, somebody talking about how Emory Williams was looking in practice, and it had gone 4 pages before the game even started. And I was like, okay, this is very interesting because this is a debate that the fan base has been having internally. And I also remember last week, I guess 2 weeks ago, when John Mateer entered the portal. So John Mateer is the quarterback who replaced Cam Ward at Washington State. He was awesome this year. Washington State obviously getting picked apart. Their OC was hired by Oklahoma. Their head coach was hired by Wake Forest. John Mateer followed his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, to Oklahoma. Miami thought they had a chance at him. They didn't really. He was always going to follow Ben Arbuckle. But we should have known then that Miami was worried. And now you look at it and it's like, oh, all the potential real difference makers at quarterback who went into the portal, they've already found their place. And it really wasn't that many. I mean, I'm looking at it like Mateer, Darian Mensah from Tulane, who wound up with former Miami head coach Manny Diaz at Duke. Maybe Jackson Arnold, but we don't know because we really didn't get a good eval on Jackson Arnold with what Oklahoma had on the offensive line at receiver. Like, that's it.
Yeah. So I feel like the position that Miami's in, and now this can go into what I wrote today, which is Miami's quarterback situation a cautionary tale of being overly reliant on rentals from the transfer portal? So there's 3 questions that Miami has to face right now. One, can the Hurricanes go into next season with Williams leading the way? Which I think that after watching a half of football, I don't know how much evidence or how much you take away from
also,
that.
Also, their defense is bad and must get better. Like that is the underlying thing too, because if you have a good defense and a good offensive line, which they will have a good offensive line, you're not as worried, but you should be terrified now.
Yeah. These aren't the only 3 questions. Let me be clear. These are the 3 that come from after the game.
Yeah.
The second question is, can a program in general be successful long-term by continually renting quarterbacks out of the portal year after year? And then the third is Miami the cautionary tale of what happens to a program that's overly reliant on finding its quarterback in the transfer portal? Because as you know, Andy, and as we've talked about quite a bit, the transfer portal has given teams a secondary chance or ability to fill out a roster if they don't recruit out of high school well. And I think that there has been this push and pull, this debate about what's prudent in terms of how to go about building your roster. Like, what percentage do you do high school? What percentage do you do portal? And there have been multiple programs, Miami being one of them, Notre Dame being another, who have been reliant on taking a quarterback year over year in the portal. And Miami, is an interesting situation because Mario Cristobal is going into year 4 next year, right? They win 10-2, or they won 10 games in the regular season. And I think that you could say that this was a beautiful proof of concept showing that they're on the right direction year. Like, even though Miami didn't make the playoff and they're disappointed that they didn't make the ACC championship game after losing to Syracuse, I think that, like, if you're a Miami fan, you would have taken 10-2 coming into the year. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you're going into a transcendent year 4, and you might think, okay, well, we'll just go get somebody in the portal again. We have money to spend. You know, we're a fun place. Miami's gorgeous. You know, all the things that Miami has to sell, and we're about to go over the hump. And it's funny enough because Notre Dame took a transfer in Sam Hartman last year, and then they took another transfer at the quarterback position in a year where they're more equipped to compete, and now they're in the playoff. So, like, I think in concept, like, if they would have gotten John Mateer, we would be like, oh my God, Miami's going to make the playoff next year. But there's danger in that, Andy, which is if you don't get John Mateer and his offensive coordinator goes to Oklahoma, and by the way, Oklahoma is also very excited about the need, both financially and roster-wise, to get a quarterback to come to their team. So if you don't get him, where does that leave you, especially considering the fact that we are 2 years away from New Year's Day and all the spots have been taken up? Like, you have players who didn't play in playoff games and left their teams early because they were afraid they were going to miss out. Like, if that's not a sign of the climate, then I don't know what is. So what we do understand about college football, Andy, is that weird stuff happens all the time. And, like, people enter the portal when we don't think they're going to, or circumstances change. Maybe in the spring, somebody's going to show up that we're not considering. Maybe Quinn Ewers will be at Miami next year. I don't know. And we'll talk about some of the options, I think, as we go down the list. But as it sits right now, don't you have to criticize the head coach who has been there for 3 years for never signing a top 150 quarterback that could play? Because, like, Notre Dame did it perfectly, right? Notre Dame took Sam Hartman and Riley Leonard back to back, but also, Andy, they also got CJ Carr, I believe a 5-star prospect in the On3 industry rankings in the 24 class. And taking the highly rated quarterback in this day and age isn't just he's definitely going to have to play. What it does is it gives you options. If he comes into the program and develops behind your transfer really well, then you feel really good about the
well, and I will say they felt good about Emory Williams, who was in their class of 2023. Remember, they were going to have Jaden Rashada and Emory Williams come in. Rashada flips to Florida. They weren't even that sad about it, which we understand why now. But Andy, they liked him, but they were trying to do this. They just didn't do this. It didn't work out.
Right. But
that's also their fault because the coaches get paid a lot to do it right. Yeah.
But at the same time, too, how much time, and this is a secondary conversation, but I think it pertains very much so to this. How much time does a coach get, or how much time do you think is rational for a coach to need before they can identify the players on their roster? Like, this whole, has to play the second half of the Pop-Tart Bowl because we got to see what he looks like. It's like, shouldn't you have a better feel on whether the kid can play, whether or not he plays in the second half of the Pop-Tart Bowl by now? I'm going to say
something mean, Ari. I'm going to say something mean.
To me, or
he was probably lighting up Miami's defense at practice because Miami's defense is bad.
Oh, yeah. I know, but I still think that you have to have a feel. Like, the thing that I cannot get over is, who do we believe, and I think I've said this to you in the past, but I'm going to say it again. Who do we believe to be the best quarterback mind in the NFL right now?
Well, Kevin O'Connell probably right now because he's resurrected Sam Darnold's career, but
Mike Shanahan would be the correct answer, right?
I don't know if we feel that way, right?
Okay, well, let me ask you this. If it's not him, he's in the top 3. Okay, he's one of the coming into the year, we viewed him as one of the best offensive quarterback minds out there, at least offensively. And they took Trey Lance in the top 5, and they took Brock Purdy.
Traded up. If you played the game of what they gave away to get Trey Lance, like they could have drafted Micah Parsons with that pick if they just kept the pick.
So that isn't just the part, though, that's important. People make bad draft picks all the time. It's really hard to nail a top 5 pick at the quarterback position. The thing that keeps me up at night is that Brock Purdy, who you could buy their rookie card from Panini for 41 cents before he played, came into the game out of necessity as a result of an injury. And ever since he came into the game out of necessity because of an injury, he has now turned into one of the 10 most brightest young quarterback stars in the sport. And I understand that reps are broken down very lopsided in practice when you have your franchise quarterback and you have Mr. Irrelevant on your team. But if the greatest mind in college football, I mean, in the NFL, or one of the 5, I'll even say,
right,
best minds in the NFL can identify who the best quarterback on his own roster is, then how does anybody do this? Like, I just, and like, now he played like Brock Purdy, a person who was really good in college, but also made really terrible plays in college, is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for his age. So the question is yeah, okay, even if he was lighting up the practice, like if you are getting paid whatever Mario Cristobal is getting paid, don't you have to have a better grasp? Like, did he need that half of football to see what he had? And if you didn't need that half of football, because it's my opinion that you're getting paid way too much money to need that half of football to know whether you can build your entire program around a guy, then why weren't they more active in the portal earlier? Like they went, I don't know if I'm like not seeing this right, but didn't it kind of feel like they were all in on Mateer and nobody else? Like, were they involved with any other quarterback?
And they didn't, like, I don't know if because they got Cam Ward that they thought they were going to get Mateer, definitely, because it worked out so well for Cam Ward coming from Washington State. But like that's not reality. Like, everybody knew Mateer was following Arbuckle. Like, everybody knew he was going to Oklahoma. So yeah, it's very weird. And like Mensa's thing went quick. Now I don't necessarily believe he's making what he's reported to be making, but I think he's making quite a bit at Duke. So maybe that just got wrapped up quickly.
Whatever. If that number is real,
Salter went to Colorado.
If that number is real for Mensa,
that's banana land. Banana land. But there's definitely a lot to unpack. Let's talk a little more about this in a second, because there's a little piece of breaking news from our guy Pete Nakos that sort of hooks into this conversation, maybe not with Miami, but in this conversation in general about quarterbacks and deciding whether you've got the one you need. So I'm talking about that in a second. But first, I want to tell you about Game Time. So would you like to go to a college football playoff quarterfinal game? You can. You can get into the Peach Bowl right now for under $50. There's some great seats in the $100 range at the Peach Bowl. So you want to see Texas play against Arizona State, you can get in for a very good deal. The Rose Bowl tickets still in the triple digits. You know, it's not the easiest ticket in the world because it's a great game, beautiful location. The Sugar Bowl, though, Ari, there's lots of good tickets for Georgia and Notre Dame in New Orleans for under $100 right now. You can get them on Game Time. If you use the code Staples, you get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, of course. But take a look. And of course, with the GT Picks function on the Game Time app, it gives you the best deals relative to the market. I was looking at Sugar Bowl tickets today. You can get some pretty good seats for $85 right now. And that's going to be a hell of a game between Georgia and Notre Dame. So, hey, want to hit one of those games? Want to hit one of the bowl games? You got if you're in Nashville and want to go see Iowa, Missouri today, they got those tickets on Game Time. You want to see Alabama tomorrow? You got those tickets on Game Time. Use the code Staples, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. All right. So Pete Nakos just reported this. Remember last week, Malik Murphy, former Duke quarterback, the guy who left so Mensa could come in. And again, if you thought Mensa was going to, never mind. He signed. More news from Pete Nakos. So the story Pete originally had written is that Murphy remained unsigned, and now he has signed. So he's going to Oregon State. There was talk about him maybe looking at Iowa, which Iowa has Hank Brown from Auburn coming in. But again, it sounds like they're still in the market. So like we know Miami's still in the market now. And you mentioned Quinn Ewers before. And I don't want to hope that bear that much. But we've talked about this. If Quinn Ewers decides he doesn't want to go to the NFL and that he can help his draft stock make more money, then I guess. But that's not something we can really address until Texas's season is over anyway. Like he's the starting quarterback at Texas.
I'll do it. Want me to do it?
If you want, but there's nothing to say until he's done.
But it's very clearly obvious what's going on here. So,
is it?
Like
he might go in the draft. This is not a great quarterback draft.
He's going to have a decision to make: NFL draft or another school, right? Like he's not going to be the starting quarterback at Texas. Although, you know who the gambling favorite is right now to win the national title?
Who is it?
Texas. And I think part of the reason for that is because they're playing one fewer game against a team that could conceivably beat it than others. Like, I think it's possible that they're no longer the favorite in the next round. Once the list is of the teams who advanced through this round. But as of right now, they're the favorite. Like, if Texas wins the national title under this kid and he wants to come back, don't you kind of stick with the guy who won you a national title? Like, I don't know. Like, is that the one thing that could things conceivably get weird? And I don't know if it's a podcast. We're having a good time. I always have to remind ourselves.
Yeah,
is there any conceivable?
They're going to be weird anyway. They're going to be weird no matter what.
No, but is there a conceivable way that Arch Manning is not the starter at Texas next year?
Ooh.
Because we are all assuming that Arch Manning is the reason why Quinn has to leave. And I think that assumption is based on the notion that Quinn Ewers wasn't good enough to get it done in the playoff. But what if he plays his ass off the next 3 weeks? They're incredible. They win the national title. He's probably going to go to the NFL in that circumstance, right? If you
that's the thing. I think that what you're saying, the problem solves itself, because if he balls out, they win the national title. We're talking Quinn Ewers here. He probably should go in the draft because that probably is going to improve his draft stock considerably.
But what if Texas wins the national championship winning the way that they just beat Clemson? And I don't think that that's going to happen because Clemson statistically had the worst rush defense in yards per carry going into the playoff of any team in it. And I don't think that Texas is just going to be able to roll over people on the ground for the next 3 or 4 games. But if they do it with him playing pretty well, and he's just who he is, does your draft stock automatically raise by winning the national title? And if he decides he wants to come back and get that guaranteed college NIL money, because as we've said on the show many times, Quinn Ewers has probably wrung every remaining drop out of the NIL bucket, that you possibly could have. Is there could Arch Manning be Miami's quarterback? Probably not, right? Like that's like way down the galaxy
probably
brain hole. But but I'm saying if Quinn Ewers decides to stay in college, it's probably not going to be at Texas. So that is a clear option in terms of this. But if it's not Quinn Ewers, then we get to the point of well, then who the hell is it? Then.
And the thing is, the only person that's going to be acceptable, I would think, to the Miami fan base, and really that gives you a chance to do what you did this year or better, is somebody who is a presumed starter somewhere else, and you've got to tamper with them off their roster. That's your only shot.
I think I wrote it in the column. I was like, it's time to start tampering.
Oh yeah. Like we're not precious about tampering here. It's been going on for a billion years. It's going to keep going on.
When you think about tampering just in general, you know how there are certain degrees of felonies, like in real life? Right. It's tax fraud or misdemeanors. Is a felony or misdemeanors. Like in the pantheon of college rules that still remain,
Yeah.
What is tampering at this point?
It's
Is
driving
it a
9 miles an
misdemeanor?
hour over the speed limit. Driving 9 miles an hour over the speed limit. That's what it is.
Okay.
It's something you can get a ticket. Yeah, it's something you can get a ticket for, but they're probably not even going to bother with you.
Okay. So tamper your ass off. And I know because like
Right.
tampering in the league is like the death penalty, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
if you
they'll take
tamper-
draft picks. Like, it's bad.
Yeah. So, like, what is the like if Miami got caught red-handed tampering with someone's freshman quarterback? Like, what's the penalty for that?
Well, you'd have to be really stupid to get caught. Really stupid, because there's so many ways around it.
Yeah.
Like, the penalties would be program penalties. They'd be a fine. They'd be take scholarships away, that sort of thing. And they're trying not to take scholarships away anymore. So, like, as Ryan asked in the chat, is it tampering with actual agents? Now, it's not. Like, you can call a guy's agent, and what are they going to do? Like, if you don't have record of it, and if you're smart enough to not text it and not put it in writing, if you're smart enough to just say it verbally, all you have to say is, we were talking about somebody's other client who is in the portal. Like, it's not that complicated.
You do one of these with your hand so they can't read the lips, like they did in the movie
You put
Casino.
Well, I mean, these are football coaches. They just put the play sheet over their mouth.
Do one of these here. You don't know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What am I saying? Profanity? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. But like I bet you if we came up, would it be in bad form, Andy, if you and I just like did a top 10 list for tomorrow's written product on 3 of like the top 10 quarterbacks that Miami should tamper with this offseason?
We would get skewered. We would get skewered for that. I can tell you right now, we would get absolutely skewered. That would not be good for the business.
We could do it. We could do it on the pod as a joke, but there are guys out there in all seriousness. Like, the thing that I like about our podcast is that we can joke, and we were joking about the tampering, right? Like, do what you got to do. But at the same time, this is a very, very big business, right?
Yes.
And you have to do what you can to protect your business. And whether you like it or not, the reality of college football is that it is likely that Miami will engage in that behavior, right? Like, because they have to.
I mean, they have to. Because let's spin this out. They don't get a transfer who's their QB1. Now, they do have Luke Nickel from Milton High in Georgia in the freshman class this year. So there's also the possibility that a freshman comes in and is really good. I don't want to just eliminate that possibility. But if they don't, what are we realistically looking at for Miami's record next season if Emory Williams is the starting quarterback? Is this a potential playoff team? Is this a potential ACC championship team? Is this a 7-5 team?
The first number that jumped into my head was 7-5.
If the defense doesn't get significantly better, like that's the other piece of it. You have to fix that part too. They were very bad on defense. The defense just absolutely
say it.
It was a liability all year. Absolute liability all year. By the way,
Miami
it's almost like Jim Mora heard your tamper your ass off and said, you know what? I'm coming after Ari. So Jim Mora is the coach at Connecticut. A simple note to the schools, and he tweeted this just now.
He's watching the show. Is he watching the show, Jim? Are you watching?
Well, remember, UConn just crushed North Carolina in bowl game. Obviously, North Carolina between coaches, all that stuff. Here's what Jim Mora said. A simple note to the schools and coaches that have blatantly broken NCAA football rules by tampering with our players in the last 24 hours. We do know who you are. We will pursue all avenues to hold you accountable. We are excited that we've built a program where coaches have to cheat to beat us, and we will protect that program. Think hard before you tamper with our players. I had to give Jim a call today because I talked to him about that situation when I did a story on him I guess it was about a month ago. it was in November. They were trying to get win number 8. They were about to play Syracuse, and he said that they'd done a good job of keeping their players. They lost a player to NC State who'd been great, and he's like, look, we understand that happens, but they had been really good about keeping their core group together, and so we'll see. I mean, but this actually tests your theory. Like, what can they do? What will they do? Because I said, if you're not stupid, but we've seen in the history of college football cheating, like, we've seen a lot of stupidity. So you could have like actual assistant coaches texting players directly who are not in the portal going, hey, you want to come play for us? Like, we could seriously have that.
It'll be interesting too, because like if Miami ends up in the spring with a quarterback that seems locked in as a starter somewhere else and it feels weird, like you'll know if it feels weird. You want to hear something weird? Speaking of that, Andy. So last night I was laying in my hotel. I'm at the Sheraton in downtown LA. It's the media hotel for the Rose Bowl. And I'm laying in bed. And as you know, when you have young kids at home, that hour or two before bed of just silence in a hotel room is about as glorious, close to nirvana you can get. And I hear a little knock on the door. Tap, 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 tap. And it was around 11:15 p.m. And it was the tap that you get, like the way that the
hold on.
Step.
We have to answer El Rico's question. Why is it tampering when it comes to Miami when not when other teams do it? Stop with this. It's tampering when it comes to all of them, but we're talking about Miami and they need a quarterback, so they're going to have to tamper. Sorry. All right. Knock.
Thank you for I don't know what they use, but housekeepers, like, it's not a knock. Yeah. They tap with something.
It's a one knuckle tap. Yeah.
No, it's like there's a metal aspect to this.
Okay. Yeah.
Like and I opened the door and it is a housekeeper at 11:15 p.m. and she said housekeeping.
Turn down service?
At 11:15 p.m.?
I have no idea. No idea.
I looked at her and I said, lady, it's 11:15, and I shut the door. And like, that could have been the NCAA, like just letting me know that they're around the corner. Like, hey, you keep spewing this stuff, this propaganda, this anti-Miami propaganda on your podcast. We're going to be right around the corner to knock on your door.
It's tampering for all of them. It's tampering when all of them do it. We had a question in the chat of how many. Oh, they tap with a key card. Scott says
that's right.
That's it. So somebody asked in the chat, how many cases of when the player enters with a do not contact tag? It was DB in the chat. How many do not contact portal guys are tampering cases, technically speaking? About 99.9999999999999% of them are tampering cases, in case you're wondering. Yeah. Most of them.
Also, too, like, tampering is good for the economy, I think.
I don't know. You know who doesn't tamper, Ari? Who does it the right way?
Your favorite
Panini
team.
America.
Oh,
your favorite team. Panini. Visit PaniniAmerica.net to start your collection. These are the most collectible sports cards on the planet. They have all the NFL stars, all the college stars, the college stars who will be NFL stars. I've got a pack of Panini Prism draft picks right here. So we got rated rookies in here. The last one of these I pulled a Julian Sayin rated rookie. Julian Sayin, we've talked about, do you portal a QB? Do you have a young QB developing behind your portaled QB? Well, Julian Sayin at Ohio State is the young 5-star QB working behind the portal QB, Will Howard. And the hope is that Julian Sayin will take over. So I got his card out of a pack of Panini Prism last week. Let's rip this pack and see what we get, because this is the one where we could get some good stuff here, Ari. We could get some autographs. There's an average of one autograph per in this, and I already know I got a good one. I'm looking at the back of this. So this is a rated rookie, Riley Leonard. You can watch him play in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia for Notre Dame. I love the rated rookies because I grew up in the 80s collecting the Donruss baseball cards, and just when you see that rated rookie, Panini knows me so well. They sent me rated rookie socks, Ari. So
I love that. You should be wearing those right now. I don't know why they're not on your feet.
I should warm up my feet. We got a Brian Urlacher, New Mexico card. Cooper Kupp at Eastern Washington. Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. But here, this is the one you're waiting for, Ari. This is the one you've been wanting to see.
Is it a nuke?
Lad McConkey auto to 149.
That's cool.
Lad McConkey had a great game against the Patriots. He's been awesome for the Chargers this year. We know how awesome he was for Georgia. That's a Lad McConkey auto. You cannot have it. It's mine.
And the cool thing about the college stuff here, Andy, is that if a player is instrumental in winning a national title for a team, like they become more collectible, I think. Like if you're a Georgia fan, yes, you would have to have that, right? Like, because absolutely that's a piece of Georgia history right there.
Got Trevor Lawrence title hunting. Got an AD Mitchell hype card. There's another big one here. I'm working on it. Got a Johnny Newton rookie, numbered to 299. Got a Rook Ororo rookie. But here we go. Blue Peyton Manning, numbered to 249.
Dude, I thought that was an arch, and I almost pooped. Over here, like,
did
that not look like Arch from here?
Well, of course, it's his uncle. But that's Peyton Manning in his white Tennessee uniform. But yes, I did it that way on purpose because I thought you might think it was an Arch card.
Because it looks a white Tennessee uniform and a white Texas uniform look very similarly from my vantage
point. Not that
point.
different when the numbers are small. Yeah. So but this is a Peyton Manning blue prism. Numbered to 249. That's a hell of a pack, Ari. PaniniAmerica.net to start your collection.
I love it when you rip really hot Panini packs and then people accuse us of getting juiced boxes. That just means you did good.
That's exactly right. No, I mean, this pack was definitely better than the last pack. You know, no offense to Amani Bailey, but I'll take my Lad McConkey autograph here.
Yeah, and listen, part of the collecting too, here's the thing that I remind people, is that if you are collecting, it's just about scarcity, right? The cards that are harder to find in the packs are worth the most. So if you want the cards to maintain and hold value and appreciate, you don't want there to be really big ones in every pack. Like that's the point. You want them to be hard to get. So as frustrating as it is sometimes to buy a box and not hit a nuke, it makes hitting them so much sweeter and the pursuit of them so much more fun. So like that to me is the deal. It's the perfect balance between, you know, the excitement and the rush of opening a pack and that feeling of like holding a big card in your hand when you nail it is like unparalleled. I love Panini America. I love that they're our sponsor, and as you guys know, I actually buy their products before they came on board, and will continue to after. So thanks so much, and congrats on the Lad, and sleeve that thing up for me, will you?
I'm sleeving it up. I'm not giving it to you though.
I know.
I mean,
I stopped asking.
This is my collection here. Ari, we got to talk about a game that is coming up. The Fiesta Bowl. Boise State, Penn State. Obviously, I have said I believe Boise State will win this game. I have given my reasons for that. But there's one person we need to talk about in this game more than anybody else. We got to talk about Ashton Jeanty. So the Ashton Jeanty discourse, you know, kind of died down after the Heisman Trophy was given out. But the fact of the matter is, if Boise State is to win, Ashton Jeanty must have a superhuman game. Well, Ashton Jeanty's PrizePicks number is out for this game. You ready for it? Because I want to hear how you feel about. I want to hear how you feel about this. Like if this is enough.
Guess?
Yeah, hold on one second. So download PrizePicks, play $5, get $50 instantly when you use the code Staples. Best daily fantasy game in America. We're talking about the squares you can pick on PrizePicks. So it's a player, a stat category, and obviously that is for college football, the NFL, the NBA. You can mix and match different sports. We're talking about Ashton Jeanty right now. So what do we think Ashton Jeanty's target rushing number is on PrizePicks for the Fiesta Bowl against Penn State?
127.5 would be my guess.
Wow.
Are you kidding me?
129.5.
Oh.
Now, here's my question. Is that enough? Because I'm not sure it is. Because I think, and we've talked about this multiple times, like in the context of like when you and I were kids watching the Chicago Bulls, like the only way to beat them was you kind of let Michael do his thing, and then you prayed you didn't get beat by Scottie Pippen and John Paxson and Horace Grant or Tony Kukoc in the second iteration, and Dennis Rodman. Like you hoped that Michael would score his 32, and then you could just figure it out from there. I'm not sure that's Ashton Jeanty scoring Michael's 32 there. I think Ashton Jeanty probably has to go over 150 for that to happen, and he probably has to go over 170 to have a game like the one he played against Oregon, where he had Boise State in the game in Eugene late in the fourth quarter.
So John here in the chat had an interesting question. Who will have more combined yards, Jeanty or Katron and Singleton? That is an interesting prop. But let me ask you this. Who would you rather have?
I'd take Jeanty
or the combo.
I'd rather have Jeanty. I would absolutely rather, and that's no offense to Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. I just think Jeanty's that good. Like, he is superhuman because he did this not behind the best offensive line in the world. A lot of this is him breaking tackles. I also think the fact that he's had time to rest and recover. Like, I think we're going to get first month of the season Ashton Jeanty here when he was averaging 10 yards a carry. Now, the way this is set up, he may do this, and if they win, it may be a lot tougher next game because this Penn State defense will beat you up. But in case you're wondering, so Katron Allen's rush square is 54.5. Nick Singleton's rush square is 77.5. We're a bad at math podcast, but
it's about
basically the same. Yeah.
Well, Ashton Jeanty running for 130 yards, I think, would be a Penn State containment of him. Yeah?
I think so, yeah.
I think he has to go past 150 and like have a monster game for them to have a chance, Andy. Like you know what I said.
I think you're right. And that's what my pick of Boise State is predicated on Ashton Jeanty having a huge game. Like his demon square for touchdowns, rushing and receiving, is 1.5, which means if you think he's going to score 2 touchdowns in the game, you pick that square. It has a higher payout because it's a demon. There's also a goblin if he scores 1, which is a lower potential payout. But I mean, 150 and 2 or more touchdowns is what I'm thinking has to happen.
Yeah. Which would be an incredible feat. The thing that I have a hard time with is how much is it even rational to expect out of somebody when the entire opposing defense, which, by the way, is the best defense they've played this year, right?
Oregon's a good defense too now. Let's not.
Yeah, I know.
They're not chopped liver.
That's also A, the opener, and B, I think Penn State's probably got a better defensive line, right? But okay, whatever. So if you think that they're going to do what they did against Oregon again, that's great. Here's the calculus I have for the game, though, because we're gonna preview the game. I'm assuming we're going to talk about it a lot tomorrow because the game is tomorrow. But yes, there have been G5 rosters in the playoffs so far, right? Like Indiana's team was basically a G5 roster because half their players came from James Madison, right?
It was like a G5 super team because they got
but still you could make a case
from the best of the G5 rosters,
yeah, but they still had a bunch of G5 players on their team playing critical, and that doesn't mean that they're not good. That just means that when you play teams that are built to win a national title, it's difficult, right? And then SMU, I think you can make the case, was also a G5 team because they were in the G5 a year ago. Now they had some additions, and of course, like half the roster came from Miami. Like I know that they've got players,
but it was because they weren't playing at Miami, so it's understandable. Yeah.
So the question that I really have here, Andy, more than anything, and this isn't a does Boise deserve to be in type scenario. So if you're going to take it there, then screw off. That's not what I'm saying. I think that we are on the verge of, and maybe I'll just look like the biggest idiot ever, of just seeing the line in the sand of like Penn State, if they get hot, might make it to the title game. And Boise, though very good with a super talented running back, is still a G5 team. And it's hard to beat the best of the P4 when you're a G5 team, no matter how good you are. It doesn't mean they don't deserve to be in or they don't have the right to play. But we've already seen what this looks like twice in the playoff. And like, I think you might need 220 from him for them to win. Like, I don't know if like 150 is enough.
Yeah. Which again, if you get first month of the season, Ashton Jeanty,
yeah,
it's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible.
Like, let's just say what it is. Like Penn State, and I understand that Kevin Jennings didn't play well in the SMU Penn State game, right? Like he donated some possessions and some points to Penn State.
Yes,
Drew Allard played his worst
so.
game in like the last 6 weeks in there, and they didn't even sweat, dude. So like if you anticipate that Penn State is going to play a more efficient, sharper offensive game, and they're just going to sell out to stop this guy, like I think that the world is asking too much of him.
The world is definitely asking a lot of him.
Yeah.
And I think, but that's the only way this works. So yeah, this is going to be a fascinating game. I cannot wait. It's tomorrow night. Ari, we got to talk about a game today though. Music City Bowls today. Iowa, Missouri. We always pick the Iowa total. We had a good run as an Iowa over podcast this year. We did. We had like a 6-week run of picking overs that hit.
Iowa over podcast before they were hitting. Like, and then it turned out that they just ended up hitting. That wasn't a bit to follow the trend. We started the trend. We did. We did. And hopefully you followed us through that and had some good luck there. But this is an interesting game because 40.5 for a bowl game where we're not entirely sure who's playing, who's motivated. I feel pretty good about the over here. Mostly because I feel good about Missouri doing it. Yeah. It seems low. But it might just be appropriate. But we're going to take the over here. We're going to watch this game. It starts at noon or 12:30 my time, so I'm going to let it rip. You want to know what I have to do today? What's that? So we just sold our media day for the Rose Bowl. I do have media day for the Rose Bowl, which starts in 7 minutes. But so we sold our house. I think I told you this, right? Yes. And we're closing today. Ooh, so DocuSign City, baby. No, there's no DocuSign when you sell property. I don't know if you know that. I found this out. Oh, it has to be like notarized. Right. And oh, yeah. So they're sending a human being to the hotel at 2:00. And I'm going to like meet him in the lobby and he's going to notarize and watch me sign the closing documents to the property. And I feel like a big shot. I'm not going to lie. Like, I feel like, like I've got money moves to make here. Mr. Wasserman, here's your pen. Like, do you get to keep the pen? Is the pen nice? These are the questions. If the pen isn't gold and spitting out gold link, then I don't know what we're doing. But yeah, we are so relieved to be selling our house. But at the same time, too, I just feel like a big shot because I feel like I have a business transaction to tend to. While I'm here. Steve says you got to wear a suit to this. I am. So yeah, we're selling the house, Armando. We're not buying it. We bought another house already bought 4 months ago before selling it, and have been paying 2 mortgages for half a year. So it's more of a like we get to keep our current house now. But yeah, we finally sold it. Super excited. Got a terrible rate on the new house, by the way. Brady Cook, by the way. Speaking of rates and numbers and overages, Eli Drinkett says it looks like Brady Cook is playing. I feel good about this over, Ari. Electric. I feel good. Electric. Yeah. So I'll be watching it as I sign over a property, and then I might try. I don't know what the day is going to look like to head over to buy some Panini stuff at a local card shop around the corner.
There you go.
And by around the corner, I mean like 2 hours away because it's LA. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I was gonna say because you're in Los Angeles.
yeah. But yeah, no, I'm excited. And if we have any, I'm going to record and try to talk to some players. I might not make it to the Oregon one, but I'll make it to the Ohio State one because Oregon's starting here shortly.
Because you're an Ohio State homer.
And I'm an Ohio State
because our
homer
show got in the way.
But if you have any thoughts of fun things I should ask, Andy, I was going to ask you after the show. I'll ask you now. What do we want to know for our show tomorrow?
That's a good question. What do we want to know from
and
like
and it doesn't have to be real.
What's the best NIL deal Will Howard got? Like,
yeah.
Compare the best NIL deal you got as Kansas State's QB to the best one you got as Ohio State's QB. Like,
yeah.
I need to know.
And not even monetarily. Not even monetarily.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the one that's essentially your salary. I'm talking about like the air conditioning company. Like that's what I want to know. So
okay. Yeah,
also
maybe we'll do that.
Tomorrow. Now you're obviously going to be headed to the Rose Bowl. Well, not tomorrow. Sorry. Rose Bowl's 2 days. So tomorrow you got a nice day set up tomorrow. But at 9 a.m. your time, noon Eastern time, tomorrow, the ReliaQuest Bowl, former Outback Bowl, no more Bloomin' Onion, Alabama, Michigan. And you had a column that before I let you go off to media day, I have to yell at you.
Oh, yeah.
So Ari had a column last week saying Kalen DeBoer aced year one at Alabama because he recruited well. Can we just all agree to yell at Ari right now, like collectively? You lost to Vanderbilt and you lost 24-3 to a 6-6 Oklahoma team and missed the playoff. If you didn't make the 12-team playoff as the head coach at Alabama, you failed. This is not to say I don't like Kalen DeBoer or I don't think he's going to do a good job at Alabama. It is to say that there is a standard. He did not meet it. He failed.
Here's my thought process. You don't have to explain to me that Alabama fans want to make the playoff. Like that to me is, I got it. When they hired Kalen DeBoer, they hired the man in 36 hours?
Uh-huh.
And they hired a man who had never signed a top 200 player in his entire career, his entire existence.
Because he didn't coach at Alabama then?
Yeah. Alabama, or I mean, I guess Washington too, that had like 19 of them in the 2 years that, leading up to his leaving there.
Jimmy Lake did sign some, and then Kalen DeBoer developed them.
Yeah. Oh, so talent does matter, believe it or not. I was actually scared.
They were talented this year and lost to Vanderbilt.
No, I know, but I'm saying I was scared about his longevity there as a result of
that piece of it. I get you. I'm picking up what you're putting
from
down.
A longevity standpoint. Okay, so listen to me. I know Courtney Morgan pretty well. Okay, like Courtney Morgan is their personnel guy, and he was absolutely one of the best talent evaluators out there. Like he can go find a 2-star.
He's the one who found player. Mason Graham for Michigan.
Yeah, he was the GM or PP, the player personnel director PPD at Michigan, and then at Washington, and they played each other. And like players that he brought to both places were important in the national championship game. I asked him about the Alabama way after he got the job, and he's like, "Yeah, that's not evaluating." And I was like, "Oh God." I was like, oh shit. Like these people are actually going to Brian Harsin this thing because they do come from smaller places that cannot recruit or, just cannot exist on that playing field.
Yeah. But they didn't do that.
And they went out and they didn't do that. Okay.
Yeah.
So they went and got 9 guys in the top 100 in the On3 industry rankings in a single class. And in 2024 or 2025, that's a really hard thing to do. It's part of the reason why Nick Saban, in my opinion, is no longer the coach, because he doubted his ability to stack talent the way that he did. So if they are going to recruit at this level while also being really good in the portal, I didn't just give up on the notion that Kalen DeBoer is a good coach. So my first test for him was always going to be and was always about whether or not he could exist doing the most important part of the job, which is amassing classes that finish in the top 3.
The most important part of the job is winning to the satisfaction.
I know, but coming out in year 1 with a quarterback
that's part of the job. The talent acquisition is a part of the job. Yes,
but if Kalen DeBoer is a good coach, and I think we both can agree that he's a good coach, yeah, right? Or unless you gave up on him already.
I have not given up on him. No,
Alabama is going to be really good a lot if they keep this up. And to me, it's I thought the reverse was going to happen.
I thought funny
Alabama was going to be really good in year 1 because they got a bunch of players from Saban, and then it was going to get gradually worse. But if actually healthy to be this way, to win 9 games in year 1, recruit your ass off, bring in guys, because he lost a shit ton of players in the portal too. Alabama was talented, but it wasn't an obscene situation where Bama couldn't possibly lose to anybody. They've got to figure out who's replacing Milroe, but they also are set up for future success in a way that I doubted they would be. So if I'm an Alabama fan, I'm disappointed and angry, sure, that they didn't make the playoff in year 1. But also, if I'm an Alabama fan, I can go into this offseason resting a little easier that at least my coach and the people who are putting together my roster not only get the job, but did it well at a time where
they're not. And the Alabama fans have been, the Alabama fans, I feel like, have been fairly reasonable for them about this entire
first coach
situation.
in Alabama since 1931 to win 9 games in year 1. So good for you, Kalen DeBoer. Again,
was set up a little better than the other ones, though.
Andy,
can we agree on that?
Facts get in the way of my statistics, okay? So listen, you don't have to explain to me that losing to Vanderbilt in Oklahoma in year 1 is bad. But as it pertains to what I needed to see in terms of tests of whether or not he would be successful there long term, it was never about wins and losses in year 1, because I know he's a good coach. We've seen it happen over the course of his entire career. Were there some bad games this year? Absolutely. There were some bad games early on at Washington too. It happens. It's college football, and it's going to happen increasingly more and more every year with the way that these rosters are set up, because it wasn't like losing to Vandy when Vandy didn't have a pulse. They lost to a pretty pesky team that played the best. That Vandy team that showed up that they would have beaten. Yeah, I know. And that was a bad game. And I'm not trying to excuse it, but in terms of I feel better December 30th, 2024 about his long-term success probability than I did a year ago now. And it has nothing to do with
here's the thing about it. You're they're going to be good for a long time, for a lot of years. The job's to be good every year. It's Alabama. It's not Fresno State. It's not Washington.
And I can accept that.
It's not to be good most years. It's to be great every year. And that's the difference.
But that's going to change.
Maybe
it's going to change everywhere, because being good the way they were at the Saban era is no longer tenable.
What are we talking about? Telling the consumer what they want?
Oh no, I'm not telling what
Alabama
they want.
Fans are going to want what they want.
They're Alabama fans and Ohio State fans and Georgia fans are going to find out. They are going to F around and find out. I think in 15 years, your notion of success is going to be different, because it's impossible. We've been indoctrinated into this world where their 2 deeps could start every other place in the entire country. And that's just not going to be the case anymore. And losses are going to happen more frequently. And I don't know, maybe when the playoff is 32 teams by then, it won't matter because everyone gets in no matter what. Alabama had a disaster of a season and we were arguing whether they should be in or not still. So
I want to ask you this question that came up in the chat. I know you got to go. Yeah. You got to get to the media days.
Don't worry about it.
We're going to close on this one because I think it's interesting with this matchup in the bowl game. I apologize because I've lost the chat link, but someone asked, has anyone compared Kalen DeBoer and Sharon Moore in their first seasons? And I think this is a good comparison because DB asked the question. So Sharon Moore, I think, getting graded on a different scale because of what he was left with timing wise from Harbaugh versus what DeBoer, because DeBoer could actually do the portal in the winter. And he brought in Austin Mack, who was a quarterback that he had recruited, Jeremy Bernard, who was one of the, he was probably the 4th best receiver at Washington behind those 3 really good ones. He's obviously a big contributor for Alabama this year. Their center they got from Washington. DeBoer had a better opportunity to stock that roster. whereas Sherrone Moore didn't because of the timing of Jim Harbaugh's exit. And that's really the difference 3 weeks can make, Ari. But how do we think Sherrone Moore did year one? It's obviously not a perfect job, but the beating Ohio State at the end of it excuses a lot of things, it feels like to me.
I think that the win over Ohio State illustrated that the culture that Michigan has in place is still in place. And I think that that is a really good thing. Like, to me,
yeah,
like, and I've always been beaten up by about myself, and maybe I'm just wrong and think about it. And like, I get it sounds stupid because we keep score and records for a reason. But like, my main my main focus sometimes with year one guys isn't just what was their record. Okay, shut up.
Right.
Like, I think that like there's more to it than that.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, and it's just like, okay, fine. So Kalen DeBoer flunked his first year because they lost 3 games. It's like, okay, fine, no discussion. That like there's no reason for a podcast. Just go by the numbers. It's a math equation. I think that there's nuance in sports, and like when On3 tweeted out the link to that column, I got a tidal wave of they lost to Vanderbilt. It's like, no shit, I know. You don't think I know that? Like, I know that. Like, you're not telling me something
but
I don't know.
Those people are all like, you're just giving us a contrarian opinion to shock us.
No,
that's what their
opinion.
response was.
Would you have rather them been 10-2 and gotten their asses kicked in the first round of the playoff with a number 17 recruiting class, or this?
Why not both? Why not have a top 5 recruiting class and make the playoff like Nick Saban did every year?
It could have been. Nick Saban's not the coach anymore because he wasn't sure that he could do that anymore. Just so you know.
Touche.
By the way.
Touche, Ari.
So, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just different now, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe I'm full of shit. But to me, what they did on the field this year was never going to be the chief indicator of his success likelihood. And what he did off the field and the way that he approached his job in a very difficult time to do what he did during a time in which the greatest coach of all time was like, I've had enough. I think that that's good. So if you don't, and you just want to go Vanderbilt, that's fine. Go ahead, do that.
No, I want to go Oklahoma.
Okay, fine. Change Vanderbilt to Oklahoma. Okay, go ahead, do that.
Because that's a lack of preparation.
But at the same time, like, we talk about this sport for 4 days a week, 5 days a week during the season for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And we got to just acknowledge and accept that there's more nuance and discussion and there's more depth to the conversation than just Oklahoma.
All right. I got to let you get to media day, but we're going to leave on Armando's request for us. We're bringing it back to the beginning of the show. Armando says, can you guys do a show on the best defensive coordinators available in the transfer portal, please? Armando's a Miami fan. I feel you, Armando. Listen.
Alex Grinch
that Pop-Tarts Bowl was tough on everybody.
They missed out on Alex
except
Grinch.
for Iowa State. Yep.
He's going to another Florida school. No, that was a fun show. I'm going to do my best to get some videos on these NIL deals, see if anybody has a really funny one. And if they don't, then we'll have a different show tomorrow. But like, I am excited.
Or you can ask him how it felt to lose to Michigan. I'm sure they'll
just go around and be
that.
like, "Hey, how did it feel to lose to Michigan?" Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Please don't do that. You might get punched.
There will be a lot of you don't think those kids are used to that? You don't think there's going to be Michigan questions down there?
Oh, there'll be a ton of Michigan questions. Like I'm sure Jack Sawyer gets asked about the whole flag thing all the time. Like, can't avoid it. So no, they usually handle themselves quite well in these situations, much better than I would. But yes, Ari, by all means, go get some good stuff.
What should I wear? You think like the
suit
hoodie?
Salmon hoodie.
No, that's I've got my suit being pressed for the property signing later on.
Okay.
So I got to go a little.
I'm glad.
I'm gonna do a little jogger, little fashionable hoodie. I don't know. I'm feeling myself today.
You're in SoCal. When in Rome. So
love it here,
guys. It's been a blast. Enjoy the Music City Bowl. Got a big show tomorrow. Ari's gonna go get us some good stuff from Media Days. We'll talk tomorrow.